what is happening.
Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you.
Get ready, pal. And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
Incredibly serious accusations here. They allege that he was advocating on behalf of Egypt. For example, he allegedly ghost wrote a letter to other senators advocating for more aid for Egypt. He also, and perhaps most seriously, allegedly shared sensitive information with Egypt about U.S. embassy personnel. Now, in exchange for this, in part, his wife allegedly received a no-show job. But the fact that he may have been advocating on behalf of a foreign government, perhaps against U.S. interests, is an incredibly serious charge to be levied against a U.S. lawmaker.
New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez charged with some pretty serious crimes. That is CNN saying, yeah, there's not a whole lot of ways around this one. And the bigger story is there is a Bob Menendez Hunter Biden connection. Check this out.
In 2010, Bob Menendez wanted to meet with then Vice President Joe Biden to host an event. But instead of going directly to his office at the White House, Menendez chief of staff went to Eric Schwerin. Who is Eric Schwerin? Well, that is Hunter Biden's business partner. So when Bob Menendez wanted to do a dirty deal, or when Bob Menendez, who does dirty deals, wanted to do a deal with the vice president's office, they didn't go to the office. They went to Hunter's business partner. So
what is it with these Democrats wanting to do business and take money from these countries that want to do us harm? They went in, they raided Bob Menendez's house, and the stuff they were finding, like even these agents who've probably seen some things that Steph and I have never seen before. They see some stuff. They're finding gold bars.
I can't get over the gold bars. Is there ever a time where you would find gold bars in someone's house and it not just be crimes? Like, there's no reason for it, right? Are you, what?
Who's that?
I'm back. I am alive. I don't sound very good this morning, but I actually am feeling great.
I don't know. She just walked into the studio this morning.
We got to get the locks changed.
Yeah.
This is Stephanie Bell.
Letting strangers into the studio.
But you sound great.
Thank you.
You do. I'm sorry. What were you saying? Gold bars? I was just shocked. Like, who's this?
There was like money, sewn into clothes, the gold bars. I did know someone in law school, and they're like, my dad invests in gold bars. And we hear a lot about it, and I've always wanted to just buy one just to say that I had one. But, I mean, it's like out of a movie. I mean, it is.
This is.
They weren't sewing those into their, pants, because that'd pull your pants down. Need a good belt for that one.
This is like 1, 2, 3 and how to be a corrupt government official, what this guy is alleged to have done. And where do you hide your gold bars? You put those in the basement. You put them in a shoebox in the closet on the top level all the way on the left underneath the bed sheets that you never use. Where do you hide gold bars, especially when you know that you're taking those gold bars from countries that want to do you harm, a la Joe and Hunter Biden? Where do you hide that stuff?
Right next to the big stacks of cash.
Silly me. By the way, Bob Menendez, masterclass in how progressives deal with this whenever they get their pants, whenever they get caught with their pants down. I didn't do it. And let's play the race card in 3, 2, 1. They're going after him because he's Latino.
He said that, but I'll tell you, the one thing, yes, absolutely. And what he's saying there, and let's make it very clear, he's directing a lot of that at Democrats, including the governor up there. That a couple of years ago, people remember Virginia, that tight race. If the Republicans had put any money into that New Jersey race, they would have won. That was a couple of years ago. The fact is, Stephanie, you're an attorney. We can talk all we want about it. It's up to him whether he resigns or not. I don't see any way, unless he's convicted, they can't remove him if he's indicted. I've seen this happen before.
Yeah,
he's ready to re-announce his candidacy for re-election today.
That's right.
Hey, it's working for Trump. We have devastating poll numbers for Joe Biden this morning for what polling is worth. We're going to get into that. Man, Trump gets indicted. His poll numbers like he is clobbering. And this is a poll from the Washington Post and ABC News. I think we're all pretty much in agreement here on the show. Poll numbers for what they're worth. we're a year out. But here's why I'm liking these poll numbers. We've covered in recent weeks the poll numbers because Trump was losing his rear end to Biden. He's been consistently climbing. Polls have continued to consistently climb. They are neck and neck, and some of these poll numbers we're going to unleash this morning. Like, wow. So maybe an indictment will help this guy. Heck, let's indict Trump again for more BS stuff. And then let's do another round of polling. And then let's get hopeful that this country is going to be back on track, because the number of folks that are unhappy with the job that Joe Biden is doing it's sad. And it's not a political thing. It's more, to me, it's the mood of the country. We're depressed. We need some Prozac.
Well, and that this stuff was just going on so blatantly. And it's like we've seen it with the Bidens so blatantly. And my favorite tweet from this weekend was, Bob Menendez is a moron. You let your son take the money, and then he filters to you discreetly. Everyone knows this. And it seems like, Brandon, I didn't know about this Hunter and Bob Menendez connection, but, it seems like this is just, in my mind, this is the tip of the iceberg. If they're blatantly hiding gold bars and money, what else is going on in that party that the Democrats think is okay? Who else has been going to Hunter Biden? It's scary.
Here are some facts in my mind. So now you've got the president of the United States, who, when he was vice president, knew he was taking money from these countries that want to harm us. He was doing it through his son. We've got this guy, Bob Menendez, who's hiding gold bars in his house. And then you've got this connection with Hunter Biden's people. And these are the three we know about: Hunter, President Magoo, and now Bob Menendez. And you're exactly right. That's all right. Who else is involved? Who else is going? Who went home over the weekend and started, man, honey, we got to move the gold because the feds is coming? That's what I think is going on. Also devastating over the weekend. This kills me. 3-year-old shot and killed in Colombia. This against the backdrop, Kamala is put on a gun violence task force. And I hope she does as well with the gun violence task force as she's done with the border. The border blowing up over the weekend. Democrat, CNN, MSNBC. It is so bad. The mayor of Dallas, Eric Johnson, and I know who this guy is because every time I fly home to go see the grandkids, I go through Dallas. And what happens when you walk through the Dallas airport, Steph?
You get the automated message from the mayor.
Yep. This is Eric Johnson, the mayor of Dallas. We hope you enjoy your stay. So I'm very familiar with this guy, the Democrat, the former Democrat, switching parties, mayor of, I think, America's 5th largest city, something like that. He switched parties. And later in the show, do you want to read some of what he wrote? He wrote an op-ed to the Wall Street Journal saying it's that bad. He says cities need Republicans. Republicans need cities. It is getting bad for Democrats. Democrats calling for Bob Menendez to resign. Democrats in the progressive network saying, what the heck is going on at the border? So now Kamala is placed on this gun violence task force. It is not a gun violence task force. It is, how do we dismantle the Second Amendment task force? Let's take a lesson from the mayor or the governor of New Mexico. Let's try doing what she do. So nobody's buying into this. She's a gun violence task force, but they want to go after Second Amendment rights. And we had a 3-year-old child less than 24 hours ago right here in mid-Missouri killed by somebody who should not have even had a gun.
Well, that's right. And happened in broad daylight about 2:30 in the afternoon, or 2:15 to be exact. I've got a story up, 939theeagle.com, should be on the KWAST website as well. We have his pictures up, 2 of them on the website. He has not been captured. His name is Larry Brownlee, common spelling Larry, common spelling Brownlee. Very, very chaotic incident yesterday, Brandon. The calls came out for shots fired. At first, CPD thought 3 people were shot, but the vehicle transporting the child, private vehicle, then crashed on its way to the Columbia Fire Station near, not too terribly far from the fire station there. And again, the child, they tried to stabilize him. The adults were taken to the hospital. We don't know their conditions, the mom and the adult male. We don't know a lot about this right now. We probably won't until the charges are filed and we can see some paperwork. But we just know that Brownlee they're seeking second-degree murder charges. But you are right, very important. He's a convicted felon. He should not have had a gun to begin with. And we see this almost every week with the Ricky Murray case that I covered. Almost all these cases when people say it's the guns, and maybe it is, that's a policy issue. I don't get into that. But the reality is, felon in possession of a firearm. I can't tell you how many times this comes up in cases I cover at the courthouse.
As a matter of fact, I'll tell you how often this happens, John. It's a felon with a gun, and people say, well, we got to stop the guns. No, you got to stop these morons that think it's okay because of progressive policies, think it's okay to still carry guns around because of progressive policies and the way these kids usually, they grow up thinking that this stuff is okay, and it's not. Those are the people that are trying. They need to be going after, and they don't. They want to go after law-abiding citizens. So we know that's what this gun violence task force is, and I feel so bad. I cannot imagine how devastated this family is this morning. A 3-year-old child who is just a. This 3-year-old wouldn't take part in any if it was gang activity, and I'm just going to make some assumptions and stereotype and guess it probably had to do something with gangs, and here's why: because of where it happened and because of the circumstances that we know this morning. And forgive me if I'm wrong, but that's just what I think. But and we talk about that, the political aspect of it, the social aspect of it. But there's some parents and grandparents and family members that watched a 3-year-old child right here on the streets of mid-Missouri get shot and get killed. A 3-year-old kid because of Democrats and progressive policies. So I get surprised, John, whenever there's a story about a shooting and the dude wasn't a felon in possession. I'm not kidding. I'm not exaggerating. I really do.
Yeah, it's the rule more than the exception, unfortunately, isn't it, Brian?
It is rare. And to Brandon's point, too, we don't know the circumstances right now, but also you mentioned the grandparents and the parents that were there. Let's also not forget the Columbia Police transported this child to the hospital. And if you look at CPD's Facebook and take that for what it's worth, there appear to be family members that were talking about how chaotic the hospital scene was. That I'm not going to go into any detail. You can look it up for yourself, but it sounds like, it sounds like it was a chaotic scene.
I will say this so that you don't have to, Brian. Typically, like women in children's hospital, a lot of times, they've got security and they've got cops showing up because then everybody wants to show up at the hospital and they're bringing their guns and they want to get revenge because that's what they think is okay. Well, I got to get revenge. I got to do this. And it's sad and devastating all around. Devastating poll numbers. We're going to be covering that this morning. And we're going to talk about the marketing brilliance that is Travis Kelce. Maybe Hannah has been right. Oh, yeah, and the Chiefs won big time. I didn't know if you knew that, John. You know the Chiefs won yesterday.
Didn't they?
They did. And
did you know who was at the Chiefs game? I think the internet almost broke yesterday.
That was crazy. Some of the things we are covering for you this morning. Missouri politics. Scott Faughn, he's here at 7:10, getting ready for the daily D.C. rundown.
Well, we will be finding out more about this potential government shutdown and whether McCarthy will survive the week.
Oh, yeah, and that's going on, too. And these poll
number. Now all we got to do is get the work done on the different appropriations bill. 4 of these are actually going to come to the floor this week if those Republicans that are kind of holding out allow the rule to go through.
By the way, don't be fooled by the words of Republican Representative Carlos Jimenez from Florida when he says, all we got to do is this. That's a big all we got to do. That's getting us into today's Daily DC Rundown with Stephanie Bell.
He also said, excuse me, he said, we've reached an agreement on the top line number, but have we, though? Who's reached agreement? Because I don't know that Matt Gaetz has reached agreement on much of anything.
Me and my wife agreed on it. Now all I got to do is bring it back to the other 434 members of the House of Representatives.
I didn't know that there were really any agreements on the table. I do know there are some of these longer spending bills, I think, dealing with like ag and some other things, and they're thinking, okay, these have the spending cuts in, and let's try to push through some of these longer bills, which is very bizarre because usually these bills would not get pushed through in under a week. But they're thinking, hey, if we push through some of these longer ones that have the spending cuts, maybe Matt Gaetz and his people will come forward and pass this continuing resolution, pass the stopgap measure to prevent the shutdown. There are lots of things that could be affected by the shutdown. Military, people are concerned about the aid to Ukraine, those kinds of things. And so maybe that would bring the folks to the table. And even if we do get a stopgap measure, it's only going to hold us over for like a month. So we'll be back here having the same conversation.
Continuing resolution, stopgap measure, basically it's just
kicking the ball down.
Kicking it down the road. We'll make this a problem later.
And not too much later. And so a month in Congress's terms is really not that long. But, I guess I don't understand what, and maybe you can help me here. I don't understand what the end game here is, because Gaetz is basically saying, like, well, we're going to, oust McCarthy. What's going to happen then? Like, how does that help anybody?
Yeah, and I'm with you, because it's like, hey, by the way, y'all grown adults there. And we see how you're behaving. I get it. There's a lot of gamesmanship in politics, and rightfully so. It's a checker game. It's a chess match. There's a lot you got to do. But, yeah.
Back in the day, when Newt and Bill Clinton went at it, it was one of those kind of deals. And now we're sort of seeing kind of a recycle on stopping the government down.
Well, and I in one way, I want to support the principles of Gaetz in that, Trump gets a lot of criticism for his spending. And we've got a lot of big spending Republicans. And so I'm thinking, yes, we need to fix the spending. But is this the right way to go about it? And I don't think so. And McCarthy made the deal with Biden. So he's trying to walk that delicate line of, keeping that deal, but keeping the Matt Gaetz people happy. And, I don't know that he's going to be able to succeed.
And Gaetz probably doing some good, tough things. A lot of conservatives love it, but I'll go back to comments made by Blaine Lukemeyer and then my past experience with Matt Gaetz and how he was on CNN last week. CNN. I have never, ever seen Matt Gaetz on CNN, and I start to believe there's a lot of truth to Matt. He takes out the flamethrower. Hey, I'm going to get on TV, name recognition, because one day I want to be president. I think there's some truth in that idea that that's his motive.
Well, Brandon, you said this morning that Biden has some big trouble when it comes to the polling. He has not had a very good week. He's been out trying to we've heard him tout his energy policy here at home. He's been out trying to tout his foreign policy experience. But now apparently Canada and India are in a fight. People have serious concerns over the continued funding for Ukraine from the U.S. And then, of course, all of these revelations about Bob Menendez. All of those on the foreign policy front really don't look good for Biden, and now he's trying to kind of still tout some of his quote-unquote successes, but the polling doesn't look good. At the same time, we're hearing from Mexican officials that they have serious concerns about immigration and drug trafficking, and they want to get a meeting with Biden.
With Taylor Swift in the house, Travis Kelce says, "Oh, baby, it's a big day for the Chiefs."
Travis Kelce scores with Taylor Swift in the house.
Audience. Yeah, sitting next to Mama Kelce, no less.
About that.
Yeah, and he scored, and they're banging on the windows and stuff. And this was right after Travis Kelce last week. Remember, we played some of this audio last week. Basically said, well, I tried, and she wasn't throwing it back.
It's life, baby. It's life. I threw it out there. I threw the ball in her court. And, I told her, maybe I've seen you rock the stage in Arrowhead. You might have to come see me rock the stage in Arrowhead and see which one's a little more lit. So we'll see what happens in the near future.
Dog.
Travis! Hey!
All right, man.
All right now!
Who's that sports dude that's interviewing him? Dave Portnoy. I love Dave Portnoy's take at the end.
We'll see what happens in the near future.
Dog.
Travis! Hey!
All right, man.
All right now!
John, does he sound to you like David Lee Roth? He sounds like David Lee Roth.
That's, that's Jason Kelce, right?
That's no.
It sounds like
it's
him.
not?
No, this is David Lee Roth. And this is Dave Portnoy.
Travis! Hey!
All right, man.
All right now! Travis! Hey!
It does sound like his brother.
It does. Well, someone posed the question yesterday. Do you think that was the first time Taylor Swift has ever seen empty seats in a stadium?
Probably.
Man. So does anybody, is this just a marketing ploy? Are they really courting each other, or is it just for fun?
I think it's just for fun. I want it to be true so badly, but I just don't think it's true. I think they would have confirmed it before now if it was true. And I've been doing some research into Travis Kelce's former relationships. And there's no tactful way of saying this, but his former girlfriends have not been Caucasian. So I don't know if Taylor is his type.
He's got a flavor. He's got a flavor.
Yeah, I don't know if Taylor is his type.
Well, he's not her type either, right?
That's
like
true.
She basically dates
I know,
like
that's what we
wimpy.
said the other day, Joe Jonas.
Yeah, right? Like wimpy little skinny things, and he is not that. So it's an interesting thing. And if it is marketing, like
it's genius.
Everyone is a genius.
Yeah.
I mean,
2 Super Bowls versus 12 Grammys. Figure it out, right?
Well, and I mean, she certainly doesn't need the press coming off of her record-breaking Eras tour, but it's fun. I think it's a fun distraction. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It's fun distraction. And marketing, it can't help either one of them when it comes to the marketing. So I'm sure there's a lot of Swifties unfamiliar with Travis Kelce, arguably one of the best receivers in the National Football League. And Travis is like, man, I'm hanging out with the most famous chick in the world. I'm dating above my pay grade. I know she's above my pay grade, but I got her, man.
Well, and he's probably using it to get podcast, listeners, and I think it's been working. They've been ranked in the top charts on iTunes and stuff for the last couple of weeks, so it's obviously working.
I want to know what the numbers are off of that game yesterday, because I think there were a lot of people tuned in that aren't normally tuned in. So the NFL is getting a huge bump too. I mean, how many people are paying Taylor Swift to show up at these games? Like the Chiefs are paying, the city of Kansas City, the NFL. I mean, maybe they're all in on it together, because she is bringing some eyeballs for sure.
We did get a text this morning at 874-9390 from listener Charles. He says, if Taylor starts doing the NFL intro song next year, would that be considered quid pro quo?
Are you ready for some football?
Welcome into the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Stephanie Bell is back. We've missed you. Missed you more than you know, because it creates a lot of work here on the show.
Sorry.
Oh, that's why you missed her? Wow.
No, I miss her because I enjoy our conversations we have during the commercial breaks and some of the things that happen behind the scenes, where we get to talk about life and stuff like that. And then every few minutes we're like, oh, we got to get talk about politics now. And then in the break we sit here and we swap recipes for rhubarb pie and stuff like that.
Gives you makeup tips.
Makeup tips and things like that.
Yeah, you know my work. I've had a lot of stuff going on with work, so I had meetings late in the week, but I also decided to bring home COVID from Europe.
Did you bring home the European strand of COVID?
I don't know, but I did pull a positive test, and so I decided to spare you all from it. It wasn't bad, honestly. I slept for like 2 days, and then I felt fine.
Oh, I got some, but you're okay.
Yeah, but obviously I didn't think I should show up and pass it along to you.
Much
all.
appreciated.
There you go.
I got some really good sleep this weekend, too. Couple of different.
Am I missing something?
Yeah. He was not asleep where he should have been.
Uh-oh. Did you sleep at the Tiger tailgate again?
No.
Close.
Okay.
So, I went to New York for one night to go see the Book of Mormon. Saw nothing of it because I was sleeping. Went to go see Frozen with the grandkids one Christmas. Saw none of it because I was sleeping. I get in these theaters and anyhow, big volleyball tournament in Union over the weekend. There's like 27 volleyball games, and I'm sitting on these hard benches, and I find this lovely couple, and dude's got one of those bench seats like you can put onto the wooden seats, and it's like, and this dude gets up, and so I go over and I start talking to the women. I'm like, hey, you think I could try this chair?
You have no shame. You have really no shame.
And they're like, yeah, he's going to work the concession stand. Why don't you come sit over here by us for a while? So I get in that chair, and all of a sudden I feel like I'm the captain of the Titanic or something. I got this chair.
King of the world.
King of the world. And I'm up, and I'm like, this is really comfy.
Now, when he was telling me this story this morning, he was talking about how uncomfortable the bleachers were, and it was hurting his old man back.
They really are. I'm not even that old, and I spent most of my weekend sitting on bleachers, and it was hot and uncomfortable.
So how long did you sleep, A? And B, why did they just let you sleep? Like, why didn't they wake you up?
Those poor women.
So here's what happens, and my friend Liz, so now she's down. She's a line judge on these volleyball games, so she's not even sitting with me to like, hey, jackass, wake up. You're embarrassing me in front of all my Owensville people here in Union.
It's like when I have to kick you awake during our meetings at work.
And she couldn't do it because she's a line judge. Well, eventually this husband, whose seat I had stolen, comes back, and unbeknownst to me,
2 games later,
I finally come to, and there's a whole crowd of people around me, like welcoming me into the world like I was just squirted from my mother's womb. They're all around laughing and watching what's...
Hey, Owensville people, did someone take a selfie with sleeping Branden?
Please.
I hope you did. Please text it to us.
That had to have been
That's mean.
Oh, I would have done it.
That had to have been the worst feeling, though, for your friend who is playing line judge down on the court. Like, she's got a front row view of you passed out in the bleachers, and she can't do a thing about it.
What about Branden when he woke up and had no idea where he was?
So to make up for it, I felt really bad, and I thought, well, I'm going to go to church. So I went to a Lutheran church in Rosebud, and there I proceeded to...
You didn't. You really fell asleep in church?
Yeah.
No, he fell off the stage.
Fell asleep in the church.
Are you doing okay? Like, twice in one weekend is kind of scary.
Well, it's just, when you have these weird hours when you're getting up at 2 in the morning to be here at 2:30, and then you're here till noon every day, once in a while, trying to catch up on sleep on the weekends. But it was such a busy weekend, I had to get to sleep to where I could get into sleep, and that happened to be at church and at volleyball games. Those are the only times.
There you go.
Now, I could maybe understand falling asleep in a dark theater, but a volleyball game where there's whistles going on and, volleyball spikes happening, that doesn't sound like a very peaceful environment.
I was out. I was on this chair, and it was comfy, and I was out. That's how tired.
So embarrassing.
Yeah.
Did you drool or snore?
No, first thing I asked, because I've got a crowd of people now. They're all like little kids. You think they're like little National Geographic explorers. And now, here's what we've encountered in the wild today. It's a Sloven 52-year-old man who has decided to take a nap here in the wilderness of kids at this volleyball tournament.
Look how he hangs upside down from the rafters in his regular position.
I can just imagine sitting at a game next to a stranger who, A, stole my chair, and B, is now passed out in it for a couple hours.
But at least I got some sleep so I could wake up and digest these polling numbers. I got to tell you, these polling numbers so outlandish. I'm like, okay, something's wrong here. And Washington Post, ABC, putting out some new poll numbers that shows the 2024 presidential election. If it were held today, Trump would win. 52-42 over Biden. Respondents also having a poor view of Biden's handling of the economy and the U.S.-Mexico border. As his polls coming out, the border is blowing up over the weekend. You've got one mayor, man, I'm not even a Democrat anymore. I'm becoming a Republican. That's Eric Johnson, mayor of Dallas, former Dem, switches to the Republican Party because of lack of leadership in the party. You've got Democrat mayors coming out saying, Joe, my gosh, what are you going to do? Is causing us real problems. This is Rolando Salinas. He is the mayor of Eagle Pass, Texas. It's a border town.
This is definitely a very serious situation for the city of Eagle Pass. We're a city of about 28 to 30,000 people, and the last couple of days we've had in excess of 5,000 people cross from Piedras Negras, Mexico, into Eagle Pass, Texas. It's become a big concern for the community. A lot of people are frustrated. A lot of these people are being let loose in the community, walking around, and it's just a big concern for the city of Eagle Pass. Not only safety-wise, but also our local economy is taking a hit because of this crisis, we've had to shut down bridge number 1, our international bridge, with so many millions of dollars flow through this bridge. We depend on the tolls of the people that pay those bridge tolls, and it's just an emergency situation.
So that dude's the mayor of Eagle Pass, Texas, town of about 25,000 people, and the number of people are coming in quickly eclipsing the population of the town, and I'm sure their hearts are big and wide. Their resources are not, and that's the thing. People say, well, compassion. We have endless compassion. However, what we do not have are endless resources, and that is a fact these people cannot get around.
Well, and he's saying they had to shut down their bridge, but, Mexico now is kind of waking up, and their top diplomats saying, we got to have a meeting with President Biden. And they shut down 60 trains in Mexico. Their largest railway company halted the trains because so many migrants were hopping on the trains. They also shut down border crossings, and according to them, there's about 140 migrants just south of the border, waiting to register for transit or asylum papers. They're saying most of these migrants are coming in from Venezuela, but they're saying we need a meeting with President Biden now because this is, causing us some headaches too.
All right, and coming up a few minutes from now, do want to look at these poll numbers and which strike do you want to end first? You know who came to see us here in Missouri to strike with the Wentzville workers? Corey Bush. She brought along her little gal pal, AOC. AOC, meanwhile, she gets nailed on TV over the weekend about vehicles. They said, well, AOC, the car you own is not, it's not a union-made vehicle. Well, COVID. She's blaming it on COVID. Some of the stories, you got to hear some of these poll numbers. They are just incredible. That's coming up about 5 minutes from now here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Good morning.
The S&P off by 9, the NASDAQ lower by 12.
Stephanie Bell's going to be looking at your futures coming up at 8:25 in the morning. Bell Business News with a little twist that only Stephanie Bell can bring you. Super stoked to have you back today doing the business news at 8:25. Can't wait for that. Right now, we're getting into poll numbers here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. There is Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
It's producer Hannah.
Hello.
And Mr. Marsh.
Yes, sir.
My name is Branden Rathert, 874-9390. 874-9390. You can catch us on the text at those phone numbers. We are in the 573. Want to give a big shout out to Drew. We appreciate you checking in this morning. Ted says, I get it, Brandon. I once fell asleep at the playground in the mall. When a man's tired, when a man's done, he's done, whether it be at church or a volleyball game.
They found him in the ball pit, 2 weeks later.
Found me under the third pew right at the front of the church. That's where he fell asleep and rolled all the way down, and they came and woke me up. Service was so good, I was just blown away. So Trump polling. Trump is running away. This is a post from Washington Post. The polling numbers from Washington Post and ABC, they released this yesterday, found that if the 2024 presidential election were held today, Trump would beat Biden by 10 points. My initial reaction is like, okay, it's kind of an outlier. But my second reaction is, hey, wait a minute, Stephanie and I have covered. The polls continue to show that Trump was getting closer to Biden. Then the latest batch of polls were showing Trump is right there. And by the way, these are all coming from the indictment. So I'll tell the progressives, hey, what else? What other kind of BS things you got on Trump? Go ahead. Indict him some more, because every time you indict him, it signals to the American people like you're just going after him because you are afraid of him. You are afraid that he's going to win. And you're afraid that he's going to take away what it is that you guys have been trying to do. More tax, clamp down on guns. You're wetting the bed about it. And Trump just continues to grow in the polls.
Well, and I think that affects him in the primary as well, because for a lot of folks early on, even if they had voted for Trump in the past, they would say, well, I think I'm included in that group. I like Trump. Do I think he could win again? No. And so let's find a candidate that could win. If he starts putting up these types of numbers and we believe the polls, then a lot of folks who are in that, I want a candidate that's like Trump, but somebody that can win. If Trump shows he can win, I think that helps him substantially in these primary contests too. Now we're about to have another debate here coming up, and Trump has said he's not going to go, and why would he? But some people I think got a little bit of a surge after the last debate, but it's really quieted down, and it's been 24/7 Trump for the last little bit here.
And now he's going with the picketers, the picket lines in Michigan, which is the same thing. Guess who was in Missouri yesterday with Cori Bush?
Do I want to know?
I saw this.
Did she?
AOC.
Yeah. Solidarity.
Unity. And then earlier in the day, I think before she came to St. Louis, a reporter's asking her, like, so you're real big on unions, supporting unions. Check out this exchange.
One of the things that's happening in the auto industry, as you know, is this market shift and transition to electric vehicles. You were quoted back in July saying you look forward to buying a union-made electric vehicle, but you currently have a non-union-made Tesla. UAW already makes some electric vehicles. So why wasn't that? Is it a problem with the quality? Is it a problem with the style? Is the market just not there?
No, our car was purchased during the pandemic when before
Get ready, pal.
And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
Well, let me tell you, the good news is the conversation continues, and I believe there's going to be an agreement, I hope very, very soon, among members. It is experience in the Senate to see individual senators and their individual fashion taste, but I think it's very positive that Chuck is sitting down with the senators who are interested in this issue, and I expect an agreement to be reached very soon.
Why do you think the dress code shouldn't change?
This is an issue I quickly evolved on last week. Pardon me, I don't give a damn what you wear on the Senate floor. I really don't. You sit down, legislate, do the work of the people, and get things moving forward. That's what I care about. And then I saw U.S. Senator John Fetterman, go onto the Senate floor and gavel in the session, wearing clothes like he just come out of the women's restroom, like he's digging, like there was a clog in the toilet, and he's got all his tools, and he was digging his arms down there. He came out dressed like that, and I thought, what an embarrassment to the United States of America, because we've already got Joe. Joe's got the business down of embarrassing our country. The other countries look at us and they're like, what? Like when you're at the grocery store, right, and we get judgy on other people because they're doing something. Like when I see somebody driving and they're wearing a mask in a car, but they're health conscious enough to at least roll down the mask so they can smoke their cigarette. And I have pictures, incidentally. I'm like, what the hell? What are you doing?
Remember when you were pompous enough to walk around wearing a mask with your face on it?
Yeah.
But honestly, how much collective time are we going to talk about what people are wearing? Like even in the state, we talked about the sleeves. We had the overall incident. I mean, we are guilty of talking about
ladies in cardigans
attire, and now we're debating it there, and other people are like, we have serious problems, like maybe like we're on the brink of World War III, and y'all are worried about like whether this dude can wear a hoodie or not.
You're right. In the House, they're like, hey, budget, keep government open. And Chuck and Dick over there, Dick Durbin and John Fetterman, like, well, I'm going to show up like I'm in a plumber's outfit, man. And now they're fighting about that. The majority of people over there, they're like, come on, man, decorum. And I was one of those, I don't care. Get the stuff done. I don't care what you're dressed in, says the guy who shows up in shorts and flip-flops every day and always has and always will. But I get the work done. We get the stuff done. But to see the pictures on the U.S. Senate floor, I mean, it really did. It hit me like, man, this is bad.
It's a lack of respect.
Yeah.
And I would say the same thing for the courtroom. I feel like people have gotten a bit sloppy when they're going to court lately, and it bothers me. It just does. And I was never one of those ones where people were like, as a young woman, you have to wear a skirt. I'm like, I will wear pants if I want to, but I will wear like a suit jacket, right? But yeah, it feels wrong when you walk into a courtroom or you see people on the floor of your government and they don't have enough respect to even wear appropriate attire.
And I doubt very seriously, I would bet a week's worth of producer Hannah's salary.
Thanks.
That if a Republican said, hey, I need to, for whatever, I can't dress myself, so I'm going to have to wear garanimals on the floor every day. I'm guessing there would be no exceptions made for a Republican. And the mess in the Senate right now, you got Senator Bob Menendez, people calling for him to resign. That's an important story, too, not just because it's another Democrat that's been caught with their pants down and likely going down the tube, because it will shift the makeup of an incredibly tight Senate, at least for a while, until they get replacement. So it's pretty important stuff.
Speaking of what people wear to important events, you're not planning on wearing flip-flops to my wedding, are you?
I thought I already had the okay. I spoke with your fiance. He says it was cool.
Okay.
Your fiance says, I'm on board with this.
Got it.
Scott Faughn, Missouri Times, joining us on the show. Now we had kind of last legislative session maybe 2023, about what the women wore on the House floor. Any comparisons here with what's happening in the Senate and what happened in the Missouri State Legislature a couple of years ago?
Well, I'm disappointed they weren't slick enough on their feet to come up with a lie as fluidly as you just did. I mean, that was well done, Branden. Have you thought about a career in politics? No, I'll tell you, you had a very insecure, kind of backward, bizarre speaker, the Uber driver himself, Rob Vescovo, and he did not like Senator Mary Elizabeth Coleman, who was a rep at the time. So he would send the House clerk to harass her about whether she had a sweater long enough. And Mary Elizabeth Coleman is one of the most modestly dressed professional women I really have ever seen. It was just a harassment technique he would use. And so that's what that all stemmed from. And, it it's so funny. Most House members, no matter what you do, will just sit there and go along if the Speaker says it. And that's what they did.
Well, and here, I'll compare it to this. So Scott Faughn, he runs around the Capitol all day and hobnobs with just about any lawmaker that's out there, and he does it in jeans and boots and a jacket. When I do it, I'm in shorts and flip-flops. So people like us, are we allowed to pass judgment on dress codes? Because, hey, this dress code is okay, but what Fetterman, his dress code, that ain't okay.
I think it's a matter of personal preference, but I'll tell you this. I think the Scripture says to whom much is given, much is required. And I don't know about the United States Congress. The only Washington I ever go to willingly is in Franklin County. I just do despise going out to Washington. I avoid it at all costs. But I think if you're in the Missouri State Senate, it is an honor to represent your community. And you should put your tie on, and you should go down there and dress seriously and professionally. I think Eric Schmidt put it best. It's not that hard to dress up for work. If you don't want to dress up for work, go get something else to do. I mean, I've seen some old boys pouring concrete today, this morning. I mean, they can wear what they want, right? If you're a United States Senator, more is given to you and more is required. Put your tie on and go to work. Dress right.
Scott, we appreciate you joining us live, I know, and it's always good to have you on. The Joint Committee on Agriculture at the Missouri Capitol will hold a hearing on Thursday at 1, and they're going to take testimony, but the big thing they're going to do is discuss the economic impact of Missouri agriculture on the state. And I know we're being heard in Audrain County. We're on the air. A lot of people listen to us in Cooper County, a lot of farm communities as well. How important is agriculture is across the state from your perspective?
Vital. Agriculture is the biggest industry this state has. It is our most important industry, and I know it just grades on the city people to say this. They want to say like Starbucks or whatever is the most important industry. The fact is agriculture is everything to this state. It always has been. It always will be, even down to the logistics of agriculture. That's what Missouri has to offer. Every dollar Missouri spends in investing in our agriculture sector, we get 3 to 4 back. It's funny that DED has this REMI model, which is just a bunch of liberals who, believe it or not, don't care about agriculture and think it's probably a waste of time if you're not raising tofu, whatever tofu even is. But it is the most vitally important thing our state has, and every time we're discussing it, talking about it, it's a great thing. And agriculture has been the first people to see what I think is probably the new politics of this state, of rural Republicans and urban Democrats coming together and having to leave the nut jobs behind. And on the mass bid of tax credits was the first time you saw that coalition really have to form. And I think that's probably, to do anything serious in this state, the coalition you're probably going to see come together more and more in order to get to 82 votes in the House.
All right, our guest, Scott Faughn, Missouri Times, joining us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Scott, when lawmakers come back to Jefferson City in January and the governor, we know, vetoed $500 million, all those line items and all, what do you think the focus will be on some of that funding? You think lawmakers are going to take some of that back up again, and even the omnibus crime bill?
Well, what I think will happen is the House will put a bunch of stuff in from St. Charles County, which is what this came down to. The governor is so slick. I tell you what, the old sheriff, he does a slow play. Ron Richard was good at slow playing you too. He'll act like he's just a simple old sheriff, and here you go. And the whole time he's wiring the whole game for himself. When he vetoed all the St. Charles County money, he knew the St. Charles County senators would demand that nobody gets any overrides unless we get ours. And he also knew that there's about 5 votes to spend a dime in St. Charles County right now. And it's not really how anybody votes. That's not how the Senate works. It's how the St. Charles County senators have acted throughout session. So everything that he vetoed will probably be put back in the budget. Lincoln will very adeptly. By the way, I really enjoyed your interview with Lincoln. When he talks, he just comes off like he actually means what he's saying, which is a really rare commodity in politics these days. But I bet Lincoln will put all their stuff back in. The House budget, as you know, has been irrelevant for 5 years. I see no reason why the House budget won't find a way to – they always just find a way to deep six themselves. I'm sure they will for the 6th consecutive year. I don't know why they wouldn't. So the House budget is sort of an irrelevant document anymore. But I figure Lincoln will put all that money back in under the knowledge the governor will veto it again, and under the knowledge it won't get overridden. So, yes, I think your Cass County landfill money and all your St. Charles County money get thrown right back in, and then the governor will veto it again.
You had recently,
and nobody will shed a tear.
Well, you had recently had John Ratliff on your midweek update, and I saw a tweet from you saying, hey, I've heard a lot of feedback, and a lot of people learned stuff that they didn't know. What didn't they know that he revealed on your show?
Well, I could get my dates wrong, but he walked through the different races in the state. He predicted that sometime toward the 24th, near the end of the month, that it could be Caleb Brown's announcing for Secretary of State. I've always thought, if there's anybody in this state that deserves a break, it's Caleb Brown. Nobody's dealt with a tougher hand better than Caleb Brown has the last 5 years now in Senate leadership. But John Ratliff is not just John's client. I think they are close personal friends. So if anybody would know any insight into Caleb's plans, it would be John. He predicted in the next few weeks we'll have a person running for Senate from Cape Girardeau County. Holly Rader's running for Lieutenant Governor. And he predicted there'll be a person that comes up from Cape County, which is the biggest county in that district. So they'll have if there's only one person from that county, they'll have the advantage out of the gate. And then John just kind of walked you through how the brass tacks of these state Senate races are about money. He walked through how Weber, he didn't think anybody could really challenge Weber as long as Weber didn't have a primary there in Columbia.
I think he said Gary Pinkel could. If Gary Pinkel.
There you go. I think he did throw the Hail Mary to Gary Pinkel. I thus far have not heard from the Pinkel campaign if they're getting into this or not. But if I had to guess, he looks awfully happy not. I can't imagine what Gary Pinkel would wonder how he got into this about month 3 in the state Senate. But he just put on a very good show about how, and he was candid. These things are about money. And can you raise the money or can't you? And we all like to talk like they're not, but they pretty well are. So it was a very informative thing. Ratliff did a great job of kind of breaking down each race, and he was just pretty candid, which is kind of nice.
Well, and I think you had asked him what's the makeup shift for his prediction. I think he said he thinks Republicans will add 2 seats in the House, which basically means we're going to get the status quo in the next session. Do you agree with him that we're looking at basically the status quo in the legislature?
No, I don't. I think we live in a culture that is volatile, and I think the abortion. If the pro-choice people figure it out, and it's an assessment I heard really first from Branden. I think that, and I've kind of asked this question. I do get to hobnob sometimes with politicians, but I'm most at home in the most rundown bar in any rural county in the state. And I think you find folks think, well, if they don't talk about abortion at dinner, but if they have to, they're pro-life, but they're not maybe as pro-life as the law is. Now, the pro-abortion people I'm seeing don't have the ability to just put out an IP that'll pass. They're going to put out something pretty extreme. So if that happens, I think the issue will be a wash and it won't matter. If they get their sense together, if there was a Jay Nixon or a Claire McCaskill still in that party who knew how to get votes and cared about getting votes and had the stroke to tell people, no, this is what we're going to do, I think they put a moderate one on, and I think they pick up more seats because I think people are okay with you being pro-life. They're pro-life, they have to say, but there's an extreme measure. I think there's like, whoa, there's a choke point here. I think maybe Republicans are past it. Or I'm telling you, I don't believe the Washington Post poll. I don't really believe any poll, but I'm telling you, Donald Trump is not a sympathetic figure. We talked before. If he could have just let people in and see a softer side or something, if he could have adjusted, he could have won that election legitimately, not in cuckoo land where he lost, but morons think you won. I really think the truth comes down to you're making the least sympathetic person in the history of American politics sympathetic by arresting him on bogus charges that are just trumped up, literally trumped up, to get him. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I 100% believe these people are doing something awful. And I think it'd be very good for this country for a person with an axe to grind with that Department of Justice. Do you believe that if you'd have told me a United States Senator, Bob Menendez, was indicted, I would have initially thought he did something wrong. Today, I initially thought, who in that Department of Justice did he tick off?
Gotcha.
And that is, I don't think I'm alone in that. I think if you'd have told me the FBI says X, I'd have said, well, that's probably right. Them old boys are good old boys. Now I'm like, I wonder who maybe somebody slept with their girlfriend or something, and here they are sharpening axes. I trust them so little. You know, I tell you, if you ever put me on that jury, I'll walk in and I'll just be a not guilty right out of the gate. I wouldn't trust a dadgum word any of them said at all. None of them.
Scott Faughn, Missouri Times, hosts the TV show This Week in Missouri Politics. We've got to cut there so we can get to What's Hot with Hannah, as always.
Good.
Please.
Because I'll get blamed.
Please. You already are. You are going to, we'll be hearing What's Hot with Hannah. Check out Scott Faughn's Missouri Times, This Week in Missouri Politics. Always a pleasure having you on the show. What's Hot with Hannah this morning?
Lions and tigers and bears. Oh, my.
5 minutes from now. 7:25-ish,
It's about damn time.
which means it's
7:28. What the heck, man?
Scott Faughn.
Oh, that's easy. That's
It
too
was
easy.
Scott.
It was
Yep,
Scott.
It was Scott.
Yeah. Mhm.
I'm not taking ownership of that one.
Whose name is on the show?
Scott Faughn's this morning.
Well, I don't even know if I have time to tell my What's Hot with Hannah story here, but I really wanted to post this question on the Wake Up Mid-Missouri Facebook page, but I knew that members of our listenership would be 16 years old about it, as I probably would as well. And it's, what's the most exotic meat you've ever eaten? It's like, for me, it's just alligator. I don't feel like that's too far out there. But there's some of these companies, sort of like the, Impossible Meat companies, where they're making vegan alternatives that kind of taste like beef or chicken or pork maybe. But there's some companies that are looking into doing more exotic fake meats, like tiger and mammoth and all sorts of other weird animals.
But like using mashed corn and soybeans, but say, oh, look, it's tiger. It's vegetarian tiger meat.
They're cultivating it from just a couple cells that they have and growing it essentially, and they're calling it tiger meat. And there's a lot of ethical issues with that, and people worried that real tigers are going to get hunted.
I think just local news is like the most important stuff to me, even though it's kind of like bad stuff going on around me, but it's the most relevant to me.
Where I come from, there's an old cowboy out turning up dirt. Where I come from, there's a preacher man in a cowboy shirt. Where I come from.
this much against every Republican we put him up against raises the question, where is that coming from? The most obvious answer is just this, is simple question of job approval. Barely 40% approve of Joe Biden's performance.
And we have to note, 56%. That's the highest disapproval rating for President Biden since he took office. That's significant.
Yeah, so let's take a look at what's driving that too here. In one big area, no surprise, it is the economy. Look at this contrast. This is April of 21, months after Biden took office. Nearly half the country was satisfied with where the economy was then. Now, barely 1 in 4 Americans satisfied with the economy.
And if the Washington Post, ABC had polled me, they would ask me what's my number one concern. I, too, would have said, for this dude where I am in mid-Missouri, it is the economy. How would you have answered, Belle?
Economy.
Economy. Hannah?
Economy.
Marsh?
Sure, why not?
I think if we lived elsewhere, it could be crime. I think for a lot of people, it might be crime. I think if I lived closer to the southern border, that might be my number one issue. But I think by virtue of where we live, a lot of folks are going to say economy.
It's the economy. I want to put some stunning poll numbers out from Washington Post and ABC. Washington Post downplaying their own poll because the amount of incredulism involved with this. A lot of folks, and I kind of look at it too, like, okay, so this one poll, you got this. But here's where I have some hope, because Stefan and I, every morning, we continue to watch these polls, and they show Biden was leading, and then all of a sudden Trump was shortening the gap, and then consistently almost neck and neck. And now this poll from the Washington Post, for what polls are worth, shows Trump with the lead. And here's what I say. Indict him again. Indict him again. Let's give him another poll bump, man. But here's some of the facts behind the numbers. 56% of respondents actively disapprove of the current presidency. 37% say he does okay. Are you a 37%er? I'm really fascinated to meet people like this. Like, are you a 37%er?
We just want to talk.
We just want to talk. That's all. As a matter of fact, we had local state rep Democrat David Tyson Smith coming on the show, and I think we held true to our end of the bargain, which was you come in here, and we're just curious about why you think these things are okay. It did not go the way we had planned. But if you're a 37%er, if you're 37%, so in other words, there's 63% of the country don't think that things are well. But if you're a 37%er, oh, yeah, things are good. Yeah, would love to talk to you. And like, where? How is it good? But if we do the math on this, 56% of respondents actively disapprove of the presidency. There's 332 million people in this country. 56% doesn't like the job the president is doing. There are 186 million people spread throughout this fair land of ours. 186 million people this morning that are unhappy, displeased, worried, concerned because of the president. 186 million people. That's a lot of people.
How long have we been watching these big polls come in at virtually a dead heat? Months now.
Yep. And we were hopeful for that because Biden was leading Trump in everything. And then they started to get neck and neck, and then they have consistently. And that's why these polls I'm putting a little bit of stock into. Number one, because they portray my point of view. But number two, Stephanie, we watch this stuff every day. John's on this too. They have continued in a consistent fashion to show Trump climbing and Joe dropping. So somebody's doing right with the messaging, like it's the economy, right? And you see Joe, like what he did this weekend, he went up and thanked the Hispanic caucus while he was giving a big speech. Problem was he wasn't speaking to the Hispanic caucus. He was speaking to the Black caucus.
He's a mess. Well, and I think even for folks who are really skeptical of polls, and, you know, the actual numbers, I think one thing that people can agree on is that polls do show movement and momentum. So like what direction things are heading. And so, John, like you said, you know, it was a dead heat for a while, and now everything's trending to show Trump gaining this momentum. So it really does, you know, and they talk about, yeah, you don't want to peak too early and then start trending downward. But as far as trends, polls, I think do a good job there, and they are showing Trump picking up. The other thing in this article I found really interesting was what it had to say about younger voters. And you think about just in general, I think the adage is, you know, you get more conservative as you get older. You know, all young people, they're like, ooh, you know, when you don't have to pay your own taxes and you're experimenting and you're whatever. Young people are just tend to be more liberal. And then, you know, as you become an adult and start thinking for yourself, you tend to become a little bit more conservative. Anyway, on this polling, it says that Trump has a 20% lead over Biden for voters 35 and under. And I think that's wild. But in my own life, when I'm thinking about, I've got a lot of older nieces and nephews in that like college age or like 26, 27. And I know a lot of folks in that age range. And when I talk to them, they're more conservative than I am. And I don't know if that's part of, having lived some of your formidable years through COVID or what. But I think in my, personally, I've noticed, I think, more conservative young people, and now the polling is bearing that out.
And you look at some of the other numbers. I mean, they're all just really favorable to Republicans right now. Biden's age and fitness, top voter concerns, 74%. As a matter of fact, and this is why I say, hey, indict Trump again. His numbers go up every time like he gets charged. So here's some numbers for you. Biden's age and fitness, top voter concerns, 74%. That is more of a concern than Trump's legal troubles.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. People are like, we don't care about the legal troubles. He can get out of that and still whip this country back into shape with its economy. President Magoo can't.
Have you noticed that Trump doesn't say a whole lot about Biden's age?
Because he's old, too.
Exactly. He's only 2 or 3 years younger than him, I think.
But the polling shows
I
that people aren't that concerned about Trump's age. And I think, Brandon, as you say, it's not just the number. It's how you're performing. And so you think Trump, he can, 4 years ago, I watched him stand on the CPAC stage for like 2.5 hours and give like one of the most brilliant speeches. It was great. And you see him, he looks in good health, and he doesn't have these same gaffes that Biden has. And so I'm with you, Brandon. Age is just a number, especially as I'm entering a new decade. Age
Steph's in her 40s now.
Just a number. But I think it's going to come into play here, and whether but I think Trump, you just don't. He seems younger than that, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, and that's why I think now they are they're wielding the weapon. They say Joe's age. Nobody's concerned with Joe's age. Him and Trump are about the same age. It's the mental acuity. It's the lack of mental acuity. It's the dumb things he does. It's when Mr. Magoo, the president, gets up on the stage and embarrasses us and says to the Hispanic caucus, hey, I'm glad to be with the black caucus today. It's when he does those things. It's when the world leader turns around to shake his hand and the president just walks away, and that world leader is like, whatever. It's those things that he cannot do. It's when he's on the stage and when he talks, his eyes are just like you can't even see because he's squinting so bad. That's what it is. So I wish they'd get off. It's not about the age. It's about the dude's just
not all there.
He's, some trees die quicker than others in the fall, right? Quicklier. Might fact check.
It would be more quicklier.
More. Might double check and see if that's a word.
You're branching out on your vocabulary
Very
there.
good. Some dude used a word on the show last week, funnily.
Yeah.
In a funnily fashion.
Brandon was like so entertained by that. I'm like, it's a real word.
It is?
Yeah.
That's what I said. I'm like,
you've never heard people say like funnily enough?
Okay, yes, I have.
Yeah.
This is one I hadn't heard for a while. 9% of Americans do not believe, so only 9% of Americans don't believe Biden got personal financial gain from being president. In other words, the majority of Americans are saying he profited. He got some money when he was vice president. Now these people elected him to be president. Now we're seeing that coming out with the stuff with Hunter Biden using the family name when Magoo is vice president and what they've been doing. And now Bob Menendez, after he got raided last week, and they're finding gold bars sewn into suit jackets, and they're finding cash up in a shoebox in the top of the attic. The feds are in there going, my gosh, I've never seen, look how much stuff Menendez was hiding. And now there are ties to Menendez with the Bidens. Check this out.
In 2010, Bob Menendez wanted to meet with then Vice President Joe Biden to host an event. But instead of going directly to his office at the White House, Menendez's chief of staff went to Eric Schwerin. Who is Eric Schwerin? Well, that is Hunter Biden's business partner. So when Bob Menendez wanted to do a dirty deal, or when Bob Menendez, who does dirty deals, wanted to do a deal with the vice president's office, they didn't go to the office. They went to Hunter's business partner.
So Bob Menendez, who is now in trouble, Democrats saying, dude, you got to get out, man. That's a bad name for us. And how nice would that be to have one less Democrat pushing forward crap in the Senate anyway, tied into the Bidens. And Stephanie's first question this morning, all right, how many other of those folks right now are involved in taking money and gold bars from countries that want to hurt us? Who was it besides just President Magoo and his kid Hunter and Bob Menendez and the wife? Who else? Who else has their fingers in that pie? And I think that's a very reasonable question.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems so blatant that, he would take this money and apparently, his wife was in on it. And what, the Egyptians knew that hey, all you got to do is give this guy some gold bars and he'll help you out. I mean, it just seems like a culture of corruption. And apparently he knew exactly who to go talk to, Hunter's people, when you want to do a shady deal. And who else is on that list of calling up Hunter's business partners when they were talking to foreign countries? I don't think this is it. I think we're just figuring out the tip of the iceberg. And I know, Scott Faughn can be a little bit conspiracy theorist like us all. And he said, I don't think this guy would have even gotten caught if the FBI wasn't, he didn't ruffle some feathers somewhere. And so to me, that sounds like too, there's probably other people out there who are doing it, who just haven't ruffled the right feathers in order to get the stick by the FBI. But it is scary.
And it's deep, that's for sure. Coming up here on the show, we are going to be doing That Would Be All Except for This. What do you have for us, John?
How about bees and cheese?
Bees and cheese.
by 12.
We'll be looking at futures for you coming up at 8:25 in the Morning Bell this morning with Stephanie Bell. Business news with a little twist that only Stephanie Bell can give you.
And that would be all, except for this.
We turn to the true crime food stories once again. A beekeeper, 32 hives of bees stolen in California, $44,000 worth of bees. Each one held 50,000 bees, 4.5 million bees, if you do the math. Cheese, believe it or not, the world's most stolen food. So Auburn police in Washington say they arrested a man who swiped a nearly $400 wheel of Beecher's cheese from a grocery store. They say the guy had been hiding out in the rafters of the supermarket. Cheese was just one of the things he stole. Apparently had liquor and cigarettes up there.
Of course.
And you never know when hunger will strike, although if you're going to be a robber or a burglar, probably eat before you go. This guy decided to make himself a pizza, even going through the trouble of putting on a pair of gloves in between stealing money out of the register at Big Slice Pizza in Fullerton, California. He drove off in the restaurant's delivery car and was arrested 3 days later. But our best guy, Oregon-based Voodoo Donuts, that's that cult favorite donut joint in Portland, you know, with the crazy donuts. This guy went a little too far to fulfill his craving. He pulled out a hatchet, went after the crew at the location, hopped over the counter and grabbed one of those pink donut boxes and filled it up. Police say they caught up with him a block later where, yes, he was eating a donut, but they had to release him because some officer ate the rest of the evidence.
Oh, man.
So that's the way it goes with cops and true crime food stories.
So cheese is really the number one most stolen food.
Apparently so.
That's so bizarre.
Can we fact check that?
Yeah, I think we should.
I'm on it.
All right.
A $400 wheel of cheese?
That's a pretty good wheel, huh?
By the way, so while we're fact checking, is cheese indeed the most stolen food in the world? I do want to tell you about this. We are going to be bringing you the second GOP debate Wednesday night, 8 o'clock. 93.9 The Eagle KSSE and 104.5 News Radio 950 KWOS. We're not going to be airing the Cardinals game that night because of this. So check it out. Coming up Wednesday night if for some reason. And I prefer, listen, I'm a big fan of this. I prefer to listen on the radio to the debates. I really do. It's just a whole different vibe. Trump won't be there, so it's going to, I guess everybody will be paying attention to as Trump's numbers continue to go up and looking really good. They've gone up to the point he's beating Biden for what polling is worth. But you got Vivek, DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Tim Scott going to be on the second debate. And so that's coming up. That'll be Wednesday night, and we're going to be carrying that live here on the radio stations.
The cheese thing checks out. Time magazine cited a study done by the Center for Retail Research.
You think I'm making this stuff up? Give me a break.
No, John. No, but there is fake news out there, you know?
We vetted it.
Edited it.
So what?
$400 wheel of cheese.
I would have guessed like candy, because who doesn't, especially little kids, you go through the aisles and check out, it's easy to steal a candy bar. I would have thought candy would be the most stolen food in the world.
I thought that'd be like prime beef or something like that.
Well, and you kind of you should probably refrigerate a lot of cheeses. So I'm thinking maybe I would steal something that wouldn't need to be refrigerated just for logistics sakes. I don't know.
Especially if you're going to hide out in the rafters of the grocery store with it.
That's really bizarre.
Most shoplifted food is cheese, but why? It would probably surprise you to learn that the number one shoplifted food item in the world is not a pocket-sized sweet or a high-end liquor, but rather everyone's favorite burger topping, cheese. So what are some other top?
He had to fact check it too, John. He didn't believe me either.
I had to fact check, man.
Well, we're sitting on the best stuff ever, because isn't there tons of cheese stored in Missouri caves?
I think so.
Yeah, up in North Kansas City, yeah.
Yeah.
Other commonly stolen food items: fresh meat, chocolate, alcohol, seafood, and baby formula. True story. 3 weeks ago, I was getting toilet paper and hot sauce, and the toilet paper, the top of the roll is. I took the bottle of hot sauce and
it's ironic.
Stop it. And And I'm taking this bottle of Frank's Red Hot sauce upside down, and I'm
life. I threw it out there. I threw the ball in her court. And, I told her, maybe I've seen you rock the stage in Arrowhead. You might have to come see me rock the stage in Arrowhead and see which one's a little more lit. So we'll see what happens in the near future.
Dog. Travis! Hey!
All right, man.
All right now!
All right, is that Dave Portnoy? The other guy.
It was the other guy.
The other guy doing his best impersonation of David Lee Roth. The David Lee Roth screams. I love that.
I was trying to find the score to the Chiefs game on Twitter yesterday, and all I could find were pictures of Taylor Swift.
Is that Pat McAfee?
Okay.
That's David Lee Roth. This is Pat McAfee.
Hey!
All right, man.
All right now!
They sound very much alike, don't they, Marsh?
Oh, yeah!
Yeah, they do.
They do. It's frighteningly so.
Yeah. So anyhow, this is last week. Hannah was on this story all last week. Were they or weren't they? And then we turned on the TV yesterday on Fox 22 here locally, and the first thing we see, who's the pretty blonde up there behind the glass with the old chick? Well, the old chick was Travis's mom, the cute girl in the blonde. That was Taylor Swift.
I'm kind of beefing with one of our sister stations here in the building this morning. Last week, I called them fake news on their Facebook page.
How come?
Well, lots of news outlets took a Jason Kelce quote that he did in a media interview where he said that he thinks that the rumors were 100% true. But then he also went on to say that he was just kidding. And lots of outlets just clipped it's 100% true, and they published it and ran with it. They didn't have the big C word, as, Brian Houseworth would say, context. And so I was trying to tell this coworker in the building that it wasn't true. And then he sends me the photo from the game yesterday, and he's like, see? And I guess now he's talking smack on his morning show about the fact that I owe him an apology for calling him fake news.
Well, it's still not it's not confirmed.
Right.
Everyone is still debating. Some of my favorite moments from yesterday, though, were actually of Mahomes because he had to do interviews not about football, but about Taylor Swift. So there was a post-game interview of him, and they're like, did you feel pressure to try to get the ball to Travis so he could score in front of Taylor? What were you thinking about during the game? And here's this incredibly talented player, like the best in the world, right? And he's like, literally, I'm answering questions about Taylor Swift. And I think in the post game, they asked him something like, he was talking about having not met her yet. And he was like, yeah, I haven't been able to meet her, but if things work out with Travis, and I'm sure I'll get to meet her. And then when he was little and growing up and wanting to be this really great, football player, did he ever think he would be doing post game interviews about Taylor Swift?
We just got a great meme from listener Doug. Did you see this yet, Brandon? He sends us a picture, and it's Chris Christie sitting at the Dallas Cowboys football game, and the caption says, ooh, I wonder who on the Dallas Cowboys Chris Christie is dating.
Probably Dak. Well, Andy Reid had the best line at the end of his post-game presser. They asked him about it, and he said, you know what? I met her before, and I'm the one who set them both up.
Wow.
Oh.
Then he smiled and walked off.
I could see Andy Reid being wingman.
I did. Yeah, it was interesting to Stephanie bring up a very good point in Mahomes handled it well, but I don't know. Is that something to ask the quarterback about of the football game at a press conference?
Yes.
After that blowout, why not?
Yeah, I just, I'm not, I don't know. I'm not so sure.
Well, and I think Mahomes kind of let it break. He was like, well, we heard from Travis that she might be coming to the game. We heard this on Friday. But so a lot of the video was from the security around her suite that they needed to keep people out. And the crowds were, crowding and people, were being ridiculous.
What were they trying to get in there?
Yeah, just wanting to see her. And so I think, so you have to imagine what went on all weekend behind the scenes with the Chiefs staff and, everybody trying to make sure, because I think she actually walked in, but somebody had a really funny video where it was it was like the silver popcorn thing, like one of those stand-up. It looks like a food service thing. And if you know, during her show, they say that she gets moved around in like a box that looks like a maintenance closet, but actually it's her. And they roll her around, and they're like, that was her in that Chiefs. Like, it looked like food service, but they're rolling her through the Chiefs stadium but like they drove away in like a convertible car, and then apparently they went to some restaurant, and her tour bus was in town. I mean, people are all following this thing like crazy.
Does anybody think it's legit, like they're legitimately dating, or both? You've got two very famous people.
I think what it is, she was there for backup quarterback and former Missouri Tiger, Blaine Gabbert, till he threw the interceptions, and then all bets were off.
I'm guessing they maybe are. I don't know. I mean, Fox did a pretty good job of
Fox News on Taylor Swift.
Well, yeah, and it was the Fox Sports, but they showed her quite a bit during the game.
Notably, she wasn't wearing the jersey.
Right. I thought that was interesting. But I believe it was a Kansas City Star reporter, I'm not sure, that had a picture of those two walking out. So, and it is what people are talking about. I sometimes as journalists, you have to report on what people are talking about. Clearly, they're talking about, we're talking about it, but I don't know. I'm just not sure of asking Mahomes about that at a press conference, but he didn't seem to mind.
Well, and to thicken the plot, Taylor is from Philly. And, of course, Travis's brother, Jason, plays for the Philadelphia Eagles.
They're on Monday Night Football, aren't they?
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes said, I felt nervous. I felt like I had to force a ball into Travis so he could score in front of his girl. And if I were Travis, listen, when I used to play baseball or whatever, I don't, and I'll tell people, like, whenever I go and MC political events or whatever, people, I'll come. Like, no, you won't. I don't want to have family or whatever in the stands because I don't need the added pressure. Patrick Mahomes said, I felt pressure to throw him a touchdown.
Well, and one of the interesting insights I saw yesterday was about him at the game, in that he's usually very bombastic and like doing the dance moves and kind of being like over the top and everything else. And yesterday he was very kind of like demure and timid and not what, and they were like, she's making him a little bit nervous, and he's like on his best behavior. And
maybe his knee's still hurt.
I don't know.
Listen, this is what guys do. When we're first trying to court a young lady, man, we put our best stuff forward. We're polite. Yes, ma'am. We open doors. We take you out to dinner. We don't use foul language. And then after you've known us for a while, boom.
I think the Chiefs should capitalize on it because, I'm not an award show girl, but I did see like Taylor Swift. Apparently at the VMAs, they had the backstage, and like it wasn't part of the actual show, but they just had a camera on Taylor the whole time. And that's all I know about the VMAs. It was like the Taylor cam, and she danced to all the songs, and it was the best part of the VMAs. And so I think the Chiefs should capitalize. I think, should she come to another game, we should just have the Taylor cam, and you can watch side by side the Chiefs game and the Taylor
Split
cam
screen.
at the same time. It would be gold.
And she was cheering pretty loud for Travis.
She was, and I'm intrigued, and I didn't see it much on the broadcast unless I missed it. But you said the fans were acting crazy. That's just like were they trying to get into?
They weren't. They were just lined up like They had roped off that area, and they were lined up, and then you saw them kind of like. I mean, how many photos? Like everyone was trying to get close enough to get like a photo of where she was at, and I don't think they had any problems with the fans, but there were several posts about like, hey, people, you need to calm down because I think
good work,
right? I mean that was the post yesterday, and like, hey, Kansas City, if we're gonna expect her to be back, like we need to be civilized and not, she's just trying to enjoy herself.
Jackie says a friend of mine sits in front of that suite. It was nuts.
Wow.
874-9390, 874-9390.
11th play of the drive. Mahomes wafting end zone. There it is. A touchdown to Kelsey. With Taylor Swift in the house, Travis Kelsey says, oh, baby, it's a big day for the Chiefs.
So Travis Kelsey, he did score with Taylor Swift. In the stands.
So to speak. There was actually on the, and I believe that voice rings a bell. Do you recognize the voice?
He was the announcer from the Chiefs game yesterday.
Yeah, and the name, I always think of Pat Summerall, but it's not Pat Summerall. It's a newer guy, a younger guy, and I just drawn a blank on the game.
Wafting end zone, there it is, a touchdown to Kelsey.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't tell you his name. I'm drawing a blank, but you know what?
A blank space?
Yeah, and usually I'm really good about it, but he replaced Buck, but he does a pretty good job. He called some baseball games as well. You know, there was at the big noon kickoff on Fox, same network on Saturday, Cincinnati played Oklahoma, and it was so loud there, Cincinnati Bearcat fans. Somebody had a sign that said, and I don't remember the exact quote, but it said something like, even Taylor Swift cannot resist a Bearcat, meaning Travis Kelce. So again, it is what people are talking about. It is. There were several signs at this event, so we'll see what happens.
I hope that, when Kelce scored his touchdown, that they were playing Taylor Swift in the stadium. Because I feel like that'd be a missed opportunity if they were not.
It would have been fun. Meanwhile, this has happened 39 times at Faurot Field this year.
Ejections?
Yep. Good work.
Already?
Yeah. We played, 3 games there?
Some of it was in drunkenness.
Well, they did lower alcohol prices, so,
I didn't think they lowered the alcohol prices. I thought they were lowering hot dogs.
The hot dogs and cheeseburgers, I know, went down, but Brandon, you're right about that. And the Highway Patrol has talked about that, and you just hate to see
minor in possession.
Yeah.
Have you ever been kicked out of a football game, Brandon?
Not a football
game. Or a volleyball game?
For snoring too loudly.
I took a good nap at a volleyball game this weekend. And by the time I was napping, there was a crowd of people, including the dude's chair that I had taken to take the nap. There were a crowd of people.
Did you pay admission to get into the volleyball tournament, or did you fleece those guys too?
I paid admission, but I whined about it.
So why are people getting kicked out?
Minors in possession, intoxicated, and minor in possession. Bag violations. So in other words, that's because you got to have an exact bag.
They are serious about that. I tried the first game to go in with it. My bag was an eighth of an inch too big, and they were like, you got to go back to your car. So it was like a 30-minute walk.
So you had to go back to the car?
Chris did.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, they are very serious about it.
Vaping?
Oh, really? You can't vape?
It'll get you kicked out of Broadway musicals like Beetlejuice, too. Just ask Lauren Boebert.
Well, that's a campus rule. You're not supposed to smoke or vape.
On campus.
And with Lauren Boebert, I think the vaping was the least of it.
Come on, John. She was being bipartisan. She was handily reaching across the aisle from what I could see.
She was reciprocated.
She got some bipartisanship back, man. Bringing outside alcohol into the state.
It's just being frugal.
Yeah.
Being intoxicated, smoking, minor possessions, disorderly conduct.
If they were smart, they would have come to our Tiger Tailgate.
Yep, as a matter of fact, we'll be doing them. I think we're at Vandiver. We're at Vanderbilt. Vandiver's a road in Columbia. We're at Vanderbilt, I think, coming up next weekend. But we'll have another home game. If you want to check out our Tiger tailgates, we do them prior to every home game. These are so cool, man. You go free Buffalo Wild Wings, free drinks, free food, bunch of different places where you can go and pick these things up. And they're free just 2 hours prior to kickoff every.
Brandon might even interview you.
Yeah, interviewed a couple. The dude who was a Democrat came up and said, hey, listen, I'm a Democrat, but I listen to you guys. I'm a regretful Biden voter. Great interview here on the show. Big O Tires, 315 Primo Cannabis in Columbia, Lutz's Barbecue in Jeff City, Graff and Sons in Mexico. You can pick up your free Tiger passes. Buffalo Wild Wings, free Bud Light, High Noon, Hy-Vee, Echo Water Systems, Twain Barbecue, and Tap Room. Coming up, we are going to be doing Morning Bell business news with a little twist only Stephanie Bell can give you.
Well, I'm not going to talk about Elon, but I am going to talk about
Morning Bell business news with a little twist that only Stephanie Bell can give you.
Futures celebrating a big Chiefs win this weekend, all in the red. Not looking so hot as the market prepares to open on this Monday morning. At the same time, some big space news coming out. It's making all of the business news. It's questionably business news, but you know I love Elon. I love space. I love UFOs, UAPs. I think it's a good investment for our country. I want to lead the world in space exploration, even though some people think it's not that important. And so I was really excited to see this today. And it also, we need to get these NASA people on some of this other stuff, because we launched this capsule. This mission in 2016, we were going to, for the first time ever, collect some soil off of an asteroid, and it just came back yesterday. So how long is that? 16 to 23? I mean, it's
7 years.
It's a long time, and apparently they've been planning it for like 20 years. Now, we're not the first to do this. Apparently Japan has done it before, but they got like 5 grams of soil, and apparently we got like 250. So we kicked their butt.
John, how much does a gram of soil go for nowadays?
This thing
prices are out of this world.
Well, they're hoping that the soil actually says something about early life and how we all came to be, and they are saying they're not expecting, and the theory is not that somehow alien, like the life came from somewhere else and then landed on Earth, but asteroids might give us an example, some sort of insight, because maybe the asteroid brought whatever molecules that you would need for life to Earth, and maybe, long before we thought. So they're hoping they're going to have a big press conference in October and tell us a little bit about what's in this bucket of dirt, basically. But they're not
very well put, Steph.
They've been planning for months on how to recover this thing, and if you read about how this thing actually, so it was really, obviously it heats up really hot, so the people had to wait for it to cool down. It came in, there were some parachutes, there were teams on the ground making sure, and it landed in our NASA space in Utah in a specific place. When we wanted to collect something off of the asteroid, it was very, very precise, and we were within a meter of where we wanted to be. And I'm thinking, these are the same people that lost a fighter jet a week ago, right? And didn't have any idea where this was big plane. Yeah. Yet we can shoot something into outer space that takes 7 years to come back, get really close to where we want it, recover it
salad joint. You've even bonded with your salad preparer for a solid 45 seconds. And now you're faced with the dreaded checkout tipping screen. Such tipping pressure is ubiquitous these days, and the pressure is on. But do you tip? A new survey by Forbes Advisor says 1/3 of Americans feel pressure to pay extra, even if there was zero table service. And the majority of people just go ahead and tip.
Yeah. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. And here's the thing. Part of it is, here's when people like, here's your burger, and they had no table service, no nothing, and they want a tip. And part of me wants to say, under Bidenomics, things are so bad, I'm okay. I can tip you a buck. I might do that because of the current state, because of what President Magoo has done to this country. I might tip you a buck. What about you?
Oh, I'm totally guilted into tipping all the time, especially if it's like a local small business that I know, because I know like it's been a struggle, and like if I'm able, I should share, I guess. And so, and also then it's like if it's people that like you get you don't want a reputation for like being, someone who doesn't tip or like respect workers in the hospitality industry, and then. Worse, you worry like, okay, if I don't tip, do they spit in my food? Which the people that I deal with, I would never. But like fast food or like, you just get a little bit worried. Like, are they going to do something to my food?
I guess I'm a jerk then.
You don't tip at all?
Well, if I'm going somewhere and I'm sitting down and eating and they serve me my food, they get my drinks, that type of thing, yes, I tip. But if I'm just going like to the coffee counter and they're just handing me my drink at the bar where I'm waiting, I don't tip.
Is the tip supposed to be for the person or the barista or whatever they call the coffee maker? Is the tip supposed to be because they made you the coffee? See, that's the thing I don't understand.
And different businesses, restaurants handle it differently. Sometimes the tips are divvied up among the servers and, that whole routine.
Yeah, I went to a restaurant in Nashville like last year, and they actually had two separate lines. They're like, this tip is for the cook, and then this tip is for the wait staff. And so then I'm like, well, shoot, do I do 20% for the, because if I split it like 10 and 10, then am I like shorting the waiter? Like I didn't know what to do, and I felt horrible. And I think I probably over tipped because I didn't know. And I think for me, transparency is like really important, and just tell me up front, like what the deal is going to be. And so I wonder, back before the government got involved and with smoking bans, and there were some places who went smoke free, and you could just pick, I'm going to go to that bar because I don't want to smell like smoke, and I have the choice to vote with my dollars, and I'm going to. I wonder if a restaurant really made a big push and said, look, this tipping thing has gotten over the top. We don't want you to have to guess, because in Europe, there's no tipping typically, depending on what country you're in, but in a lot of countries, no tipping.
It's considered rude, isn't it?
In some instances. Yeah. And then in other instances, people were asking me for a cash tip, and I was like, they're scamming me and they're just going to pocket this. And anyway, but it was refreshing not to have to worry about it at the end of the meal, to be like, oh, how much do I tip? Is this the right amount? Did I get good service? What, all that, to just say, this is the price, this is what you pay. It was so nice. And so I wonder if, a restaurant mid-mo went to that and said, look, this is a no tipping restaurant. We are going to make sure that we pay, the prices will reflect what our people need to make a living wage or whatever. And you'll know that at the end of the night, all you have to do is sign the bill. And I honestly would choose to go there because it's easier. Now, a lot of people might think, well, if they're not incentivized to, maybe if your waiter's not incentivized by potentially a nice tip, then maybe they wouldn't treat you as good. I don't think so. I think people, just like you're worried about your reputation, the restaurant and that service worker is worried about their reputation. I think they still want to they want to do a good job.
And you'll see a lot of menus that say, hey, 20% gratuity will be added to your bill on them.
Yeah, and like, what happened to the 15%? We were at 15% for a lot of years, and then it seems like we had the government pandemic, and now all of a sudden, well, now it's got to be 20%. Well, who made that rule that it's 20%?
I mean, people got really bad at math, and 15% is kind of hard.
And I seem to recall several years ago, there were restaurants like Joe's Crab Shack, one of the chains, said, hey, we're going to we're just going to pay wait staff more, and we're going to get rid of the tipping. And I think they tried, and it universally failed everywhere, from what I understand.
So you're saying my idea is a bad one?
No, I'm saying based on prior experience.
It didn't work out.
874-9390 if you're familiar with this. Bill is in Jefferson City. Bill, talking about tipping. What's up, bud?
Hey, we got a favorite restaurant in Jeff City. It's a Chinese restaurant. It's been there for years. That they include the tipping on the bill. And when we try to tip the waitress, the owner or manager or whatever he is says no, that the tip's already in the bill. And I said, well, does she get that? And he's like, no, we split it up between everybody here. So I don't know if he's keeping the tip but it's crazy. I mean, they include the tipping on the check now. I hear that's pretty common anymore.
Yeah, it's crazy. Bill, Jeff City, we appreciate you being a part of Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
And you have to be careful. I've done it before where like they have the automatic gratuity and then you tip on top of that. And then you're thinking about it later and you're like, that was really expensive. And then you're like, oh, I gave a 40% tip. Whoops.
Orange Beach, Alabama, a couple of years ago. It was like, man, this is a pretty hefty bill. I didn't think but okay, man. And then I'm adding, 15, 18, 20% on top of that. And then later, they did it for me. How kind of them. And it wasn't like because we had a party of 8 or anything. It's like they just did it. And I feel, because I always think everybody's out to get me. That like
you do.
I do sometimes. But I feel like they should be telling you.
They purposefully misled you.
That's right. They're after this little chubby balding dude from mid-Missouri. We're going to get him, but I feel like
it was right there on your receipt, Brandon. Did you not read it?
They take advantage of people like me that didn't read the fine line.
What about other services outside of food? Like, Stephanie, if you go get a manicure and pedicure, are you going to tip your nail artist?
20% every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, haircuts, beauty salons.
Yeah.
What about wedding vendors?
Yes, you should tip.
Yes, that's a big thing in all
Hannah,
these.
Get with me after the show.
Okay.
Stuff's wrong on this.
That's a big thing in all these, wedding Facebook groups that I'm in is, how much do I tip my vendors? And I'm sitting here like, we paid a lot of money for these vendors. It just seems excessive to also tip, but I see both sides of it, I guess.
And in a wedding, by the way, congratulations to Hannah. She got married at the Edward Jones Dome over the weekend, halftime of the Memphis Mizzou game. She is now, big round of applause for producer Hannah. She is now married.
Fake news.
And that's a lot of tipping, and you're throwing out a whole bunch of money anyway.
Yeah.
And then everybody wants tips. What about a photographer? Do you tip a photographer? Not.
I mean, that's one of the vendors I'm talking about.
Well, I'm talking about just like, hey, the fall colors are out. Let's all get together at the lake and get the photog, take some family pictures. Do you tip them?
I think it depends on your wedding day. I think yes. And so for a lot of people, like I didn't have a wedding planner, and so my photographer was like everything. Most people in mid-Missouri will know her, Amy Enderle. She's a Truman grad. Love her. And she had a bag of like goodies. My dress like had a problem and ripped, and she was like, safety pinning it. And she was like, I got you on this. I mean, in my wedding, I underpaid for her services, honestly, and she was so much more than like a photographer that day to me. And so I think for a lot of people, like especially in mid-mo, that your photographer is the only person that's kind of by your side all day and helping things run on time and doing all those things. And so definitely worth the tip.
I just had an idea, John. Hannah.
Sir?
Steph, need all y'all on this. But we should, Wake Up Mid-Missouri should create a GoFundMe account, and people can electronically tip us here on the show every morning.
We get lots of tips every day from listeners.
I think technically they can. I think Facebook came up with this. I don't understand because I'm like a boomer on this stuff, but there is like a stars or something, and you can click your star. Have you seen this, Hannah? Have you ever tried it? I've never given anyone else a star, but I think.
Yeah, our Facebook Live video stream, I think you can technically send us stars if you wanted to.
And somehow we can convert that into like gift cards or something, right? I don't know what you. Yeah. I don't know once you get them what happens to that.
Yeah, I don't know either. We're great business people.
874-9390. 874-9390. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. There's Mr. John Marsh.
Good morning.
It's a highlight of your weekend, bud.
Mizzou undefeated.
How about that? 4-0. They're ranked in the AP top 25. Hopefully we'll beat I keep wanting to say Vandiver. It's not Vandiver. It's Vanderbilt.
Vandy.
Vandy. But then after that, they'd be facing a very tough ranked LSU. So potentially they go 5-0, but not 6-0.
But we're ranked, so.
We're ranked. First time that's happened in a while. Luther Burden looked good. Quarterback looked good. Chiefs, they're 2-1. Did anybody see what the Dolphins, what they did to the Broncos? Wow.
It was awesome.
Oh, my goodness.
You see the highlight reel? It was like it was like Pop Warner football.
Oh, man. It was harsh. They dropped 10 touchdowns on this team. 70 to, I can't even remember what Denver scored.
That's probably the highest scoring NFL football game I've ever heard of.
Yeah.
Since the 60s, I think. First time since the 1960s if anybody's put up a score like that.
If we are supposed to tip for deliveries, why don't most people tip the mail carrier? Do you tip like the UPS or the FedEx or Amazon person?
I've seen people leave out like bottles of water and snacks and like extra like gifts for but I don't, not cash.
I think people used to do that a lot back in the day around Christmas time.
Yeah.
Oh, that's still a thing. That's still a thing for sure.
All right, coming up just a few minutes from now, we have some leftovers. Which strike would you rather see end quicker? The Hollywood screenwriters strike, United Auto Hollywood screenwriters and studios have reached a tentative agreement to end the prolonged strike, and I don't care. It's not affected my TV viewing. But I know some folks get cranky about their favorite TV shows. TV writers' strike affected you, Steph?
Not in the least.
Hannah?
Not really.
But a little bit?
Maybe a little.
Which one? Come on, dude. We're all friends here.
I mean, some of the late night stuff is funny.
Yeah. Marsh, what about you?
Getting tired of the Yellowstone reruns on network TV.
Well, they've had to do some different types of programming. The other night, I happened to be up late enough to see what they were doing for Saturday Night Live, and they were going way back into the Saturday Night Live archives. Here's one thing, and this might be a stretch, but I would think with the magnitude of some of the mistakes that President Magoo has made, that these late night shows, Colbert, Kimmel, Fallon, that they would have to have been on some of this stuff more. And I think that's important because these kids, they watch TV and they won't poke fun a whole lot at Biden, but they'll sure as heck go after Trump. But I think we've missed out on a golden opportunity for some of these mainstream networks with these late night talk shows where they could have been going after Biden, but because of the writers' strike. Bill Maher on HBO and his show, he said, I'm going to go back to work. He says, I'm not going to take the writers. He says, but I've also, by the way, you all are striking and you're still getting paid a little bit of money, but I've got other people that are not union. They're not striking, but because you are striking, they are out of work. And he's like, I'm going to go back to work and help these folks. He didn't do that. Drew Barrymore, I think, basically tried doing the same thing, but the backlash, again, when they say Hollywood elite and the power they have, Bill Maher, who could, I don't give a dang what anybody says. That much pressure in the Hollywood elite that he's like, man, I better not do this. It could cause some real serious problems. So anyhow, Hollywood screenwriters and studios have reached a tentative agreement to end the prolonged strike. Meanwhile, United Auto Workers, do you hear who came to see us here in Missouri yesterday?
Oh, I wish she'd stay where she is.
Fox's favorite politician. I wish she'd stay where she is, and I wish Fox would quit talking about. She gets more coverage on Fox than on MSNBC or CNN combined. She came with Cory Bush and went to the Wentzville plant. And then AOC earlier in the day, she got knocked for driving an EV that's a non-union vehicle. My God.
Man,
These
busted.
Yeah. I tell you what, a lot of these progressive Democrats, they really are just stupid. They lack the ability to do any kind of forward thinking. The one thing that they are very good at, John, is circular stupidity. They say, well, we're going to do this. We're going to do this idea. And then they do that. For example, defund the police. What happens? Then crime goes up. Well, we need more money. How come? Well, because crime's going up. That's circular stupidity. You defunded police. Yeah, crime is going up. And now you want more money. They excel. That's circular stupidity.
Circular stupidity. Did you just coin that?
I would like to. President Magoo and his circular stupidity. I'm going to write a children's books, and it'll be in kids' libraries.
I think it belongs on a hat.
You're going to write it, or ChatGPT is going to write it?
ChatGPT is going to write a book. I'm going to title it President Magoo and Circular Stupidity, and I'm going to put little cartoons and stuff in there to explain how these things work. Steph Bell, so glad you are back today. I really am.
Amen.
Warms my heart. It really does. What do you got for leftovers?
Well, I saw this article yesterday about how I guess MoDOT is requesting a new corridor for Amtrak in Missouri, and they're thinking about connecting Kansas City to Springfield, Branson. And I'm a big Amtrak supporter. I don't like unnecessary spending of like our federal dollars, but I really enjoy a good Amtrak ride from like Jeff City over to KC or St. Louis. And so I think providing that opportunity for other folks in Missouri, if the money's already there and we can be a part of a program that the feds have already identified, I'm here for it.
All right. Marsh, what you got?
Another mountain lion spotted in Missouri. This one was September 12th in Shannon County. They got it on a game camera after a big old elk was killed and eaten by a mountain lion down there.
That was pretty impressive, man. That thing slayed a big old elk. And I don't know, because that's what
remember January? They had the one in Boone County confirmed, and another one in Callaway. So they're out there.
Shannon County, deep south, beautiful down there, deep south Missouri. And I thought that was the same place they had some elk farms.
Yeah, they do down that way.
Easy pickings.
There you go.
Oh, you mean you put all the elk just into one place? This makes it way easier. And then the mountain lion tells the other mountain, "Hey, come here. I found a place, Shannon County, Missouri. You're gonna love it. They keep all the food.
They
right
got them all
there."
penned up. You don't even have to work very hard.
All you can eat buffet.
Somebody wants to know: do you tip tattoo artists? Eric, yes, you tip tattoo artists. I would say.
Did you tip your tattoo artist last time?
I did. Yeah.
Before or after?
Here, I may not be around actually when the tattoo's done. I'm gonna tip you now. Randy says, "Congratulations, Hannah."
I'm not actually married yet, but thank you, Randy.
I was just teasing about Hannah getting married over the weekend at the Edward Jones Dome game.
There's probably at least 2 people listening this morning who went, "Oh shoot, did I miss that?"
I know we've mentioned this, but I'm going to also include this in leftovers. The mayor, Democratic mayor of one of the largest, at least I think Dallas, top 4, top 5